Welcome back. I'm Wes Wood, the Income Guy, and today we're exploring the whats, whys, and hows of estate planning. Great to have you. I'm glad you joined me this week. And so far, we've covered what an estate plan is and what's in it. Now let's talk more about why you need to have one. Here's a question for you. What do Picasso, Abe Lincoln, and the rock star Prince all have in common? You probably already guessed it. They all died without leaving a will. And as you might remember, the artist Prince died just 5 years ago at the age of 57 years old. And when he passed away, his estate was worth over $100 million. And it still has not been settled after 5 years. And for the past 5 years, his siblings have been haggling over their share of the assets. And of course, that means once the estate is finally settled, all the lawyers that were involved are going to get their sizable shares as well. Now, Prince's example is a perfect one of the kind of financial and emotional trauma a family can suffer when you ignore estate planning. It can happen even if you don't have a very large fortune like $100 million. Families have been torn apart by arguments over cheap jewelry, dolls, furniture, and other things with mostly sentimental value. And once the courts get involved to settle these disputes, the financial toll really begins to mount and it gets extremely expensive. It's unlikely you'll be able to communicate all your wishes after you pass away. So what it's important to do is spell them out ahead of time in ways that are legally binding. It's important not just to do it for your family, but also do it for yourself. And think about it this way. An advisor who specializes in retirement income can help you make the right financial decisions to protect your asset. But a good estate planning attorney can help you make the right legal decisions as well to protect your estate. That's just as important because bad decisions can be costly. For example, you might think that designating a beneficiary is the same thing as putting a child on an asset. It is not. The first one is typically part of estate planning. The second, putting a name or a child on an asset, is a potentially dangerous move that you should probably avoid. That's because if the child ever got divorced or sued or anything like that, half of the assets would belong to his or her spouse in that divorce. And if the child ever got sued, the assets would be subject to collection and litigation. And that's just one example. There are a number of legal mistakes that could jeopardize your estate. And by estate, I am again simply meaning and talking about your collective assets, whatever they may be worth. You want to protect them both legally and financially for the good of your family after you're gone, but also for the good of yourself while you're still around. And that's the whole point of estate planning. But how exactly do you go about doing this? I'm going to talk more about that in just a moment, but you can also learn more with our free estate planning report. It's included in your retirement income kit. And to get it, just go to retiretv.com or by calling 855-776-0614 to request your free income kit and estate planning report. Now, let's welcome back our income specialist, Dave Scranton, on today's show. Welcome back, Dave.
Great, Wes. Thank you. You know, you're so right that when you say that it's not about something that's just for the wealthy. I mean, sometimes it's things that aren't worth a lot of monetary value, but they have a lot of sentimental value. And I know you've been doing this long enough where, you know, I'm sure you have some incredible client stories where people have thought about things that most people would think are trivial, but they're important sentimentally to them.
Yeah, that's right, Dave. I've seen a lot of cases. I've seen fallouts over the simplest things like even a snow globe. Personally, I've seen it in my family. I'll never forget just a few years back when my wife's grandmother passed away. My wife has a sister, an older sister and a younger brother, and their grandmother wore a ring on her right hand. And you would have thought this ring to them was worth $1 million. Now, if I were to go pawn this ring off, maybe get $50 for it, but it had such sentimental value to them. And unfortunately, there was nothing listed in her estate plan that said who this ring is going to go to. So what happened? My wife and her sister kind of fought like cats and dogs over this ring and didn't talk for quite some time. Now, since then, they've reconciled, and now they trade the ring just about every other Christmas there. So it all worked out in the end. But there's a lot of other stories where families are still arguing years and years after somebody has passed away over just the silliest things.
Well, it's funny, you could say all's well that ends well, but really not, because it caused anguish in the family. And I know none of your viewers want to cause anguish in the family, even if just for a few months before things get settled out. So do you think it's these personal decisions that sometimes are difficult to make, and therefore sometimes the reason why maybe people procrastinate so much in designing an estate plan?
Yeah, that's probably it. You nailed it. I have a lot of people that come in that have been retired for years, and they're so happy they're finally getting their estate plan. And I'll ask them, hey, just curious, but what took you so long to get this thing knocked out? And they just didn't really want to deal with it or think about it. It's not anything that's very fun to talk about with your family, but it is necessary. And once somebody has actually sat down and knocked out that estate plan after procrastinating for a while, you should see the relief on their face. They're just happy that they've gotten it knocked out because they know their family is going to be in a much better shape in the event that they pass away.
Sure. And so it sounds like the cash investments are often the easiest decisions to make in terms of where they go. And you mentioned beneficiary designations, but not all accounts allow beneficiary designations. So you mind sharing which ones do allow you to just simply, boom, snap a finger and put a beneficiary on them?
Yep. Yeah, beneficiaries are great. So beneficiaries can be put on most financial assets, meaning bank accounts. And normally a bank account is like TOD or POD, which stands for transfer on death or payable on death, depending on the bank or the credit union. Also, IRAs have beneficiaries where you could put primary beneficiaries, contingent beneficiaries, a word called per stirpes, divided equally, which we won't go too far into that today, what that is. Life insurance policies, annuities, which are contracts offered by insurance companies. You can put beneficiaries on any of those assets. But when you do put beneficiaries, you definitely want to be making sure that they are up to date and in good order. Because I've seen beneficiaries that have been out of date where actually ex-spouses have been left on accounts. And thank goodness we discover it before anything happens to our client. But you can imagine who would have received that asset if we didn't catch it when we were reviewing those beneficiaries. But yes, that's a very powerful tool that can be used for an estate plan.
Great.
And Dave, hey, thanks again, and stay with us, and we'll get back with you in just a few minutes. But coming back after the break, we're going to talk about how to create your estate plan in conjunction with your broader retirement income strategy. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Wes Wood, founder of Wood Financial Group. Did you know that one simple mistake can derail your retirement plan? Could you be making that mistake right now? By not making the shift from growth-based to income-based investing, you could be setting up your retirement plan to fail. If you're at or near retirement age, time is not on your side. One market correction could wipe out your life savings. Make the switch today so you can preserve your assets and generate retirement income you can count on. Visit retiretv.com to download your free retirement income kit from Wood Financial Group.